Hello everyone. I'm going to be doing a little introduction to Father Tom's Take tonight because we want to share with you something from our book, After the Diagnosis, that I think offers us great hope and some insight into what we see from the disciples in today's gospel. So this is from chapter 15, The Seasoning of Faith, and it's a quote from Michael Casey's wonderful book, Fully Human, Fully Divine. And here's what Michael Casey had to say. It is evident that Jesus' most intimate followers had made little progress in the inward journey to which he called them. Much resistance remained. Even at a relatively late stage in the gospel, after so many signs and so much teaching, the disciples manifested a certain imperviousness to the reality of Jesus. Their hearts seemed to have become hardened. They were no better than the fickle crowd or the stiff-necked religious authorities. So much time, so much care, so much affection, and with such a slight result. A quick transit through the earliest Gospels leaves us no doubt that the 12 were deficient not only in their attitudes and priorities, but also in their understanding of the things of God. And now the Gospel according to Luke. About 8 days after he said this, he took Peter, John, and James and went up to the mountain to pray. While he was praying, his face changed in appearance and his clothing became dazzling white. And behold, 2 men were conversing with him, Moses and Elijah, who appeared in glory and spoke of his exodus that he was going to accomplish in Jerusalem. Peter and his companions had been overcome by sleep, but becoming fully awake, they saw his glory and the 2 men standing with him. As they were about to part from him, Peter said to Jesus, "Master, it is good that we are here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." But he did not know what he was saying. While he was still speaking, a cloud came and cast a shadow over them, and they became frightened when they entered the cloud. Then from the cloud, a voice that said, "This is my chosen son, listen to him." After the voice had spoken, Jesus was found alone. They fell silent and did not at that time tell anyone what they had seen.
As you listen to the quote of Michael Casey from Michael Casey, but also as you heard the gospel, I really want you, as you reflect on the gospel today, to go back in your scripture and turn to the 9th chapter and to actively see what was going on, because there's a number of things going on. And why did God need to say, "This is my chosen son"? Listen to him. Why did he have a need to say, listen to him? And so let's just see what's happening. In that chapter, we see Peter's confession about Jesus, when Jesus said, "Who do people say that I am?" And then secondly, "Who do you say I am?" He said to Peter, and Peter said, "You are the Messiah of God." Now, in Israel at that time, there was a fervor, there was a really sense that God was going to break into the human story of the Israelite people as he broke into the life of the Israelite people in Egypt, and Moses came and liberated them from the yoke of Egypt. And they were feeling, who's going to help us? I think this Jesus may be able to lead this revolt and help them get rid of the yoke of the Romans. So he had an understanding, this Jesus may be the one who's going to be the Messiah of God. God has sent them to set us free. So that was the first thing he said. Then the second thing, right after that, and it had them fry their minds, because he was saying to Jesus that Jesus was saying to them, the most important thing is to be what? this first prediction of his passion. Where it says, the Son of Man must suffer greatly, be rejected by the elders, the chief priests and scribes, the power base at that time, and be killed, and on the third day be raised up. I mean, in other words, the Messiah of God is not going to make it. He's going to be killed. He's going to be. What's going to happen here to us? And then he talks about the conditions of discipleship. He goes right into that. So just in case you haven't heard me on this, the whole condition of to be a disciple is, if anyone wants to come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me. So he's saying, deny yourself, take up your cross. I mean, stand in your suffering. So they're saying this doesn't make sense. You're the Messiah of God, but you got to do this. This is going to happen even to us. And then he said this. He said, if you're going to try to save yourself by your own ability and own power, you're going to lose yourself. But if you save yourself for my sake or in the power of my love, you will truly save yourself. And he says, what profits a person if he gains all the power and the glory of the whole world, but yet loses his soul in the process, loses himself? So he's putting something heavy on the disciples. And they're confused and they're wondering. And so then all of a sudden he says to Peter, James, and John, come with me. And they go up the mountain. And then what happens? Up in the mountain, as you heard the gospel proclaimed by Barbara, he revealed himself, but they were asleep, or they were sleeping, which means they weren't fully awake even to recognize it. But when they recognized it, and they set a sense of what it was, right away, they thought out of the operating system 1.0. Well, we're going to put tents up for you. We're going to put tents up for you. And so all of a sudden what happens, a cloud came, and then they heard this voice which said, this is my chosen son. Listen to him. Listen to what he's saying. Get your own expectations out of the way. Do that. It's all about inner transformation, because then what happens when he came down from the mountain? He had 2 healings of inner transformation. And then in case they didn't hear it, in closing this chapter, he said, the Son of Man is going to be handed over. So the problem with it is that the disciples, even though, as Michael Casey sort of captured it, even though they thought they knew God, even though they felt they understood God, that they were missing the mark. They were missing the mark. And not that they were bad, but they had to go through their own suffering in order to be transformed into operating system 2.0. So what I encourage you to do, and I ask you to really do some homework because it's Lent, I want you to read chapter 7, The Shattering Naive and Reasonable Faith, but I also want you to read chapter 15, The Season of Faith. And I want you to look at that in relationship to what took place on the mountain and in relationship to what Casey said in his opening piece, Barbara read. And to begin to say, where do I stand? Where am I right now? Don't be hard on yourself, but you got to be honest with yourself. And then begin to have a conversation with your God, saying, here's where I think I am. And then be real. Because God is saying to you, who are you? Who are you? Because I need to use you to bring my love to a broken world. Thank you.